So I think for our next try, I think I'd like to try the green Mufasa deck, or at least some flavor of it. So I'm going to export this to Pixelborn, and then I'm going to grab the deck list here. I'll add it to this if you want to check it out. So this is this, and then it's green Mufasa. Okay, so let's try a flavor of this deck. I don't know if it'll necessarily be this exact one that we stick with. I want to try this list as is, just to start, and then we'll see how we like all the cards and what we might want to change with it once we sort of get back into Pixelborn here. I don't have that deck again because I immediately copied over the code. Export this. Okay, let's try that again. Yeah, thanks for hanging out, dude. Yeah, we'll try some Mufasas. Maybe we'll figure something out. So far, I like the burn deck the most of the ones that we've tried, just because it's pretty favorable, I think, a lot of times into a lot of the decks that are trying to, like, not race you, just because it's really hard to race a deck like that. Okay, so here's what we're working with so far. I don't know necessarily about... okay, so let's look at the deck. So that's this. So I want to look at it in this... Oh my god, it's still scuffed. Alright, well... The import is not great. But we'll talk to Pavel about that later. Okay, so let's go back to the deck, and then let's look here. Okay, so... Interaction-wise, we have Tinkerbell, which allows us to deal with flyers, potentially, as long as we have something with 3 power. I do like Panic a lot, given that it also quests for 2. So, like, the Pain-Panic combo is pretty strong. Genie is a little bit of interaction that we have on 6. And then, realistically, a lot of these other cards are just trying to be a little bit denser questers, I guess. Given that you have, like, the Rockstar Surfer, but you really don't have that many 2-drops. I don't love the Stitch in this as much, but this deck is a lot more aggressive than the other one, given that it plays a lot of 1-drops, it plays a lot of 2-drops in this, but just additionally more 1-drops. And then it also plays the Bippity Boppity, which, you know, you can flip Panic, to make the Pain go for 3 a couple of times if you want. It allows you to sort of Rapunzel again, Hades again, and then you can also get out some of your additional cards with the Stitch. You can use the Queen to dump out an early Mufasa, etc. So there are some interesting things that you can do with this deck that maybe you couldn't on like the yellow-purple version of it. So let's give it a try. So this is green Mufasa. And we are 0-0. And yeah, sometimes the early removal can be a problem with this, but it does have some interesting lines where you can shift and just get a little bit of extra lore and things like that. So we'll get rid of this. We can get rid of Ray and the Stitch here. We can dump Mufasa in early. We've got the Tinkerbell, which I think is a decent card in this matchup, and we have the Queen Shift. We'll get rid of a couple of these cards. See if we have anything else. We have some Simbas that can protect our Queen as well. I think the redundant Queen we can get rid of. And then just say go. Yeah, it does have 3 lore Ray as well, which is another thing that you can sort of bippity-boppity out. It just gives you another really aggressive threat that's hard for these decks to deal with sometimes. We don't need 2 Simbas necessarily, but I am in the market, I think, to shift this and just start pushing some lore. Especially against the ruby purple deck, they don't really have a great way of dealing with queen plus Simba. Like, none, I guess. This is a little awkward because it makes it hard on our ink. It's going to be really hard to get to Mufasa this game unless we just draw 2 ink in a row. Doc helps a lot with that, actually. Maybe we don't worry as much about the Simba then. And we just quest with the queen, get rid of Simba. And then play out Doc here. This queen is probably going to get in for 6 or 8 pretty comfortably. They may have a fox next turn, but by then we're going to have a Mufasa out already, which is nice. They go for Surfer, which is just not it. We're getting rid of this Stitch. We're going to quest with Doc. We'll play out Mufasa. And then we'll quest with our queen here as well. Trigger here. Doesn't really matter. We'll say go. So we're sort of just turboing them down, which with just a much faster clock than what we've had in the last couple of Mufasa piles that we were playing. They play Crab. That's fine. I think they're looking to kill the Doc here, which is also fine. Especially given that we can play out the Tinkerbell and just take out this mini. We could also just play Ray if we want. Is it better just to go up 4 and then... Do I just play the Ray instead of the Tinkerbell? Make them have to interact with our board instead? It's probably fine, right? We still have the Mufasa either way. We just do this. Play our Ray here, and then say go. And then, like, what is their best line here? Probably... It's probably Fox on the Crab, and then take out both of these targets. That's an option that they can have. Our board is a little rough against B-Prep, for sure. Especially if this Mufasa doesn't hit anything particularly exciting. It's one of the problems with this deck is it does struggle against B-Prep a little bit, but we are a few turns away from it. We'll have to see what they do in this turn. I do think that their best line possible is just to take out both the Queen and the Mufasa right away. Maui does that pretty well as well. We'll see what we hit off of this. Like, the Maui could just blow it out too. We hit a Queen. Okay. Likely that means that they're just going to hit this Queen. Interestingly, we can leverage the... If we draw an ink here, we can leverage the Queen to be Tremaine protection, and then just bounce, say, the mini to play out the genie, and then they're just dead. Oh, they crabbed that. Okay, so they can kill both. So that's not as good for us then. Bounce Maui. Then they can Tremaine and kill one of these, which is pretty rough. I can hit with Ray. And then just play Doc. I guess I'd rather force them to do it. I think I'd rather keep the genie. I'm trying to think here. Because we're keeping Ray either way, I would think. I mean, I'm playing one of these cards for Tremaine. One of these two. I'm just debating on whether I care about like having the dock so that I can play two things after the B prep or not. But I don't really have that as an option. I think it's just the dock, but I could very easily see it being the Genie, just because it forces them to B prep the turn after, because now if I don't draw an Inkable, like, the Tremaine is just a beating either way. And they get to draw with the 2 from friends on the other side, which is problematic. Like, that was a card that I was considering when I was thinking about the Genie there, so that they don't have the ability just to sing and draw 2. Because the way that they win this game is they stop this Ray from finishing it, and then they just Tremaine us for the rest of the game, which is possible. If they don't have either of those, they're just dead. So then it didn't really matter. That was basically the thought, is we need something to pressure it, and either one of those cards I think was fine in that spot. I don't think you're wrong either way. I think if you play the dock or if you play the Genie, I think both have merits. Preventing the draw 2 limits their options. Either way, you're sacking whatever you play to Tremaine, because the Ray is a better card. At least it quests for a little bit more. And I think that it's possible that because we would have needed another ink either way to play the Genie, that it was maybe better to ink and then do Genie in that spot. If only because if we draw a follow-up Genie or just another 6-drop, then we would have the ability to play it, and we may not have otherwise. And it also limits more of their lines. But I think it's kind of a horse apiece. Let's get rid of these 2. The Rapunzel's actually passable in this matchup with Pain. We can get rid of the Queen and one of the Rays for sure. We can just ink a Queen as well. Like, I'm going to mulligan these 4 for sure. And we'll keep 1 for ink. Okay. We go first here, so this is... I'm debating on whether or not I want to run out the Queen. I don't really think that the line that we had before where we Queen into Shift Queen is necessarily what I want. But it does make Pain a little bit better. I don't think we need this Simba. I think we do this and say go. We're likely going to shift this, but not until turn 3. We may not have this Rapunzel. We'll see how they play on whether or not that Rapunzel does anything for us. We almost have to keep this Tinkerbell as well, so that we can deal with a flyer. So maybe the Rapunzel just doesn't make sense. Nice. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, worst case is your cost to entry is nothing. And it can't be that much worse than Arena is right now, so... I think I'm getting rid of this. I think I'm doing this, and then I'm going to play Pain. And I'm going to quest for 2. Because there's no way that they can reasonably kill it. Yeah, I like this because it can Bippity as well and dump out a Mufasa if we draw it, which is nice. We can also quest with this and just gain a ton of lore next turn. With the Pain. Which I think is what I'm going to do. And then probably ink Ray here. And hold on to these. So I think I ink Ray. I shift this. So we shift the Queen. We quest. We make this smaller, this bigger. And then we quest with Pain. Go to 6 and then say go. And then we have an interesting line where if our opponent leaves this tapped, basically, Pain can hit into it and then we can Rapunzel as well. And it's difficult for them to kill both of these with 3. Like, there just isn't a way to do it with 3 cost here. They can kill the queen with the snake if they want. Play like a Maleficent or whatever. It's pretty good. But we can also run out, like, we can ink the Rapunzel if the Rapunzel's not going to be good. And then we can play the Hades and just grab another ink, which gives us the Mufasa on 5. So if they just quest here and don't Fox, then we get to keep beating them with this. But they opted to go with that, which makes sense. So there's no real way that we can favorably interact here, unfortunately. We can make them have it still, and then not worry so much about the next part of it. I think I'm going to have to get rid of Rapunzel here. Rapunzel just doesn't seem like it's going to work for us. I think I get rid of Rapunzel. I think I play Hades. Grab Pain. Now I'm debating on whether or not I'm supposed to quest here. If I quest, it's trading with the Mim Fox 100% of the time. If I don't quest, then they likely have to leave this tapped. I think I can wait a turn. I think I can wait one turn. Because then they can't sing with this either without it being a free kill for the other Hades. And we still have the option to quest this for 2 later anyway. Like, it doesn't... 4 doesn't really have a way of taking that option away from us. 6 can, 5 potentially can, but in this spot there's not much that they're going to be able to do to stop it. I think our play is to bin Pain. We Mufasa, and then we quest with this. Is this pretty free? We'll hold back Queen again. We do have the ability just to play the Genie next turn. So they Maui, that's fine. They're probably going to quest with this. Should make sense. So they end up questing with everything. Okay, so I can get rid of the Queen. I'm trying to figure out what the best option to bounce is. I think it's the Minnie Mouse. But then what do I do with the rest of this? Quest with both of these and go to 16. I could even bounce the Queen to my hand. Like, I could hit the Olaf, or I could quest with this and then bounce it to my hand. Tremaine is still pretty good against us then. What if I do this? Bounce the Surfer. What if I just don't quest with these? What is their play? They untap Tremaine. I could quest with this. Make the Mufasa able to just eat the Mim. And then they've got Maui, Tremaine, and then I don't get the Stitch. I don't think it's that bad, though. Let's do this, this, and then we'll just hit here, and then say go. Ideally, we'd like 2 characters in play with this Mufasa, or sorry, with this Carefree Surfer, so that we have some ability to rebuild after a Be Prepared. Because currently, even if we just quested out, we didn't have the ability to do that. And the Mufasa on its own is not necessarily enough of an answer. But there are a lot of things that this can flip into that are good answers. And if they opt to attack with Maui first, I would consider... leaving the Mufasa in play. And then sacking the genie. Assuming that they have a Be Prepared. But I wouldn't get to draw the 2 cards then, which is problematic. I think we'll do this. We hit a dock. We'll play the dock. It's fine. That should allow us to quest with both of these. That'll get us up to a decent number here. And then we don't necessarily have to run out the new dog either. Let's quest with this, quest with this. I suppose I could have waited on the genie just in case we drew Bippity Boppity. Maybe that would have been smart. Pain and Array. That means that I can probably just ink the new dog. And then say go. My assumption is that they're going to ink and then Be Prepared, and then we just have 2 things as a follow-up. If they do anything other than that, I would be surprised. They just run out another Tremaine. Surprising. Does that mean that they don't have a Be Prepared? Do we just get rid of this Stitch then? I suppose. Quest with our Olaf here. So they have 5 to our 2. It's a good draw, actually. I think we quest with the genie. We go to 15. If I assume that they have to do Be Prep next turn, I don't want to run out too much more. What if I just run out Pain? Pain is also lethal, just on its own. So here's the different lines. If I run out Ray, I kill them 100% of the time if they don't Be Prep. If they do Be Prep, then we at least have something to follow up that can kill them. I think this is fine. I think this plays around Be Prepared enough that I'm okay with it. The line that they can have is they quest for 5, they like ink Snake and Tremaine us again. But if they do that, I think I can just like keep the genie and quest it again and go to lethal with the Ray. Which I think is fine. Like they may not make that play assuming that the Pain isn't lethal without Panic. Because they may not think that I have Panic either. Nice. Yeah, the game itself isn't terribly difficult. It does have a lot of nuance in, say, the deck building and how some of the games and matchups can play out, but that's not that unusual for games like this. Oh, do we lose? I guess we lose. I guess I should have played another thing. 3, 4. We're gonna have to fight some of their things then. Otherwise we lose here. 3, 4. If I hit this, I can pain this thing as well. I mean, I can deal with both of these, but this is 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not quite enough. But I can keep the genie in play and play both of these. So it is possible for us to win the turn after if they don't have Goat Bounce. Because they're going to go and gain an additional 4, so they'll go to 17. So Goat Bounce Goat, which they can't do quite yet. I guess we have to full commit in, which maybe we should have done last turn. We do this. We go Panic on Pain. Hit the Tremaine. Play Ray and pass. So we have lethal if they have nothing. If they have a B-prep, then we're probably dead. Because I played around it last turn. Not playing around the Ursula, though. Played around as much as I could, I think. We'll see. They could just have nothing. Like this plus these two is lethal. Even through a single Tremaine. Or an answer to the Pain if they just attack it. So we'll see. This could be good enough. Okay, they draw a card. That makes sense. Digging for Be Prepared, probably. Basically run the numbers, realize that they don't have enough. If they sing it and then follow it up with a card, that's going to be real bad for us. They play Snake, bounce Maleficent, probably, replay it, draw another card. Or they already have the Be Prepared, which they hit off the top, off the first, and then they're going to play the Maleficent. Yeah, problematic. Alright, play a Simba, say go. Such is playing a deck that doesn't have any real interaction. Sometimes you go all in and it's just not good enough. Rapunzel, Mufasa, Hades. Like Hades does, Stitch does. There are not a ton of draw cards, but it plays all the ones that it can. Carefree Surfer is the majority of it, I think. That and Hades and the Mufasa are the different, like, draw things. I would assume that they would bounce the Rabbit. It surprises me that they would bounce the Maleficent unless they're looking at getting rid of it. Okay, they got us. Okay, so here's the problem. The more nonsense that you add to the deck, the worse the Mufasa gets, right? The more cards that are not characters, the less good Mufasa becomes. And then the deck becomes something else. Which is fine. The deck doesn't have to be a Mufasa deck. But if you're adding a lot of random things, then the Mufasa plan gets worse. The more non-characters. Even having the 3 that are in there now, the 3 Bippity Boppities, or in the previous one we had some number of lanterns, it can feel pretty rough, because every time that you hit one, it takes the namesake card in the deck, like the one that gives you that advantage, and then you perish. I mean, we could have played more aggressively and probably just killed them. They didn't have the Be Prepared when I was playing around it. Or trying to play around it. I didn't play around the second Tremaine, which ended up getting us. But if I had just played 2 cards that turn, then they're just dead on board. Because the Ursula doesn't do anything then. I just opted to try and play around Be Prepared, and then they didn't have it. That happens sometimes. You can either make them have it, or try and assume that they don't have it, and then they might do something else. That's why this deck is very good, because it has other lines available to it that aren't just do that stuff, right? So we have Pain Panic. We do have a Stitch Shift. And a Mufasa. This hand is really good if we didn't need ink. I guess these two can be ink. And then we can try to shift the Stitch as well. Maybe this is too cute, like the Stitch Shift. Like, maybe we just do the Pain Panic, and then we don't need this nonsense. I don't know. The hand is fine, I guess. Like, I think we get rid of Ray. I will play out the Stitch, and then we'll say go. And then we'll Pain into Panic, and then we'll see where we're at after that. Obviously, we can just rip all Inkables, and then this is fine. Doc is very good here, too. But it could just be unnecessary with the way that our curve is. Like, this might just be better. When am I playing this is a question. So I'm not playing it on 3. If I'm not playing it on 3, I don't know when I'm playing it. Unless we just ignore this line, and ignore this line, and then we play towards Doc into Mufasa instead. I don't know if I like that. I think we're just not doing Doc this game. We're just going to do this instead. And maybe it won't be good. We'll see. This also opens up Rapunzel as a decent line, too. Pain is very good against Snake. A lot of times. Once you've done the whole panic business. Another Stitch. Just shifting into Rockstar without having any 1-drops feels pretty bad. I think I'm getting rid of Simba here. And then we're likely going to get rid of the Stitch anyway. But I think we're playing Panic. And then I think I'm questing with Panic. Or sorry, with Pain. For sure. And then I'm debating on this Stitch. I don't feel like the Stitch makes sense. Because we do still have this. But it also makes just attacking with the Mim into Pain awkward, because then we can just Stitch back and kill it, which is also a line. And just hitting this for 3 makes Rapunzel, like, a huge deal for us if we draw one. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what they do on their turn 3, at least. Doing, like, Quest 1 and then Fox is a line, certainly, as well. They might Teeth here, I guess. Teeth the Pain on the Mini and then attack with Mim. I guess that's a line. It does kill the Pain, for sure. It's a lot of resources to deal with a 1/4, though. If they don't run out of time first. So they do Teeth and Ambitions. They end up hitting something, probably. Pain, and then they attack it. Okay. It is dead. It has perished. Okay. So, some options that we have. We can Panic and kill the Mim, and then just play Surfer or Rockstar. We can quest with Panic and Stitch. We can quest with this and Rockstar. And then go to, what, another 5? So we go to 9. Depends on how much we would really like to play things to our board more than just Mufasa. I mean, okay, I think this is happening no matter what. Now it just depends on how valuable just questing with the Stitch when they go to 4 versus questing with both, and then they can go 3, and then they can Fox here. They can kill the Rockstar. Then that leaves us with Panic. So it depends on how much I care about this Panic versus this Rockstar. And I feel like this Rockstar is a lot better. So I think we're going to bash here, quest here, go to 7 and say go. So there's always the spot where I just like go wide, draw a bunch of cards. If I draw another 2-drop, I can just play 2 and draw 2 cards. Because there's not really a lot for 4 that this deck has to answer the Rockstar here. Outside of doing something like... there's no Teeth line that works here for 4. A Crab on its own also doesn't work here. So they might just not have any answer to the Rockstar. This turn specifically. They do have Maui next turn as an option. But this turn specifically, there's not much that they can do to a Rockstar Stitch. So we draw Hades. I have a line where I can play Hades, draw Pain, Ink Pain, play this. Play the new dog. And then we just don't quest with this. And then Maui becomes like a really awkward line. And we get to draw an extra card, which I think I'm okay with. We don't need to do anything with this Rockstar right this moment. We could even ink the Mufasa, but I don't think that that's where I want to be. I think I'd rather do this, play a tap to draw a card, and then say go. The turn where I want to play this Mufasa is right before the Be Prepared. So we have a few turns to deal with that. Now if their play is Maui, like, what are they going to do about this new dog? We can even Simba next turn as well. If they choose to attack with the mini, I'm definitely going to just bash it with this Hades. I think our play is to play this, draw a card. We can play the Pain, draw a card. I think I ink the Queen. Just don't think we need the Queen here. We're in the market to do this. And then just quest with these 2. And say go. Now that we have the Simba, there's not much that they can do with 6 either. Tremaine, we probably, you know, get rid of the Hades or the Stitch or whatever. And if they're setting up just for Be Prepared, like, we're going to just play Mufasa and then hope that it turns into something sweet. If we draw another 1-drop, I would consider playing it just to draw a card, just to cycle it into something else. Rapunzel... Do I want to draw 2 cards with it over getting the lore? So this is 2... No, we need to play Mufasa here, I think. We can even ink the Rapunzel. So I think we just go quest, 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 quest. We go to 18, and I just play Mufasa here. And probably just ink the Rapunzel. We just really don't need it. And then I'll say go. There's enough 2-lore things in the deck that the Mufasa can do pretty well against a random Be Prepared. And if not, it can gain 1. We can follow it up with like a dock. The Rapunzel's just not going to be able to get much value here. Like, they don't have a line other than Be Prepared in this spot. And if the Mufasa flips anything that has any amount of lore, then they're just dead. So they'll draw their 2 cards. We'll see what the Mufasa hits. Hits a genie. We play the genie. We do nothing with the ability, and then they're dead. Boom. So pretty easy to race. Red-purple on the play for sure. It's one of the benefits of the deck. It's one of the reasons that I like the Pain Panic so much, is because it's a difficult thing to interact with without specifically Fox. And it gains a lot of lore very quickly. And if they don't deal with it right away and you follow it up with another panic, or you, you know, you bippity-boppity it or you queen it, then all of a sudden it just does that again. I think it's one of the few decks where I really quite like queen, because it allows your panic to actually get that extra 2 lore a lot more consistently. This deck seems okay so far. I think there's always tweaks that can be made for it. I'm not sure how much I like the Surfer, oh sorry, the Rockstar combo in here. Outside of like the bippity lines where you like shift genies in early, it just doesn't really do a lot most of the time. We could keep the dock and the bippity. Maybe I get rid of these. We can always ink this. I think we'll keep these, just because there's some interesting lines that you can do with bippity boppity. I think we're getting rid of the Stitch for sure, and then I'm gonna say go. Yeah, the Ruby list is interesting. I do feel like the green has some cards that are a lot better than what the red cards do. Like, overall, the red cards don't do much for the deck. They give you some board control, right? But you don't really need that much board control when you're supposed to be the aggro deck. Like, it's cool to play, you know, random Maleficent Dragon off the top, but there's a lot of bad cards in the deck, too. I mean, there's a lot of bad cards in this one as well, but I think that there's less. Like, this card is just dramatically better than Tremaine in a bunch of matchups, right? Where, in, like, this matchup, Tremaine is not very good, whereas a 3/3 flyer sometimes is just too hard for them to interact with. The Queen looks like it's not really where we're going to be in this match, so let's just get rid of it, and I'm going to play the Simba face up, just so that they can't quest with this for free. I would like to get this dock down. I mean, it also plays Mother Gothel, but Mother Gothel's a kind of awkward hit off of the Mufasa too. And, like, the whole idea of drawing cards with Rapunzel, you know, Mother Gothel is cute, I think, at best. I don't necessarily think that it's the end-all, be-all that some people make it out to be. I think it's okay, certainly. I think we quest with Simba here, say go. Like, I think it's good, but it's also very dirtily. Like, you're playing Gothel, doing nothing with it. You're drawing 3 cards. Like, it doesn't really forward your game plan that much, because you're just running a Rapunzel out, where, like, the green deck, you know, you play Pain, Panic, all of a sudden you're at 7 lore or whatever. Are either super better than the other? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think they're different. I think that's about it, though. It's just trying to do different flavors of what this deck is already doing, you know? Because most of the Amber cards are about the same. They're doing about the same in each deck. This one has some interesting lines that Bippity can do that the other deck really doesn't. Interesting. Okay. So we can get out of 5. We could go for Rey or Mufasa. How likely is this Rapunzel to draw cards here? Against this, if it's able to bash into it, we can very easily get 2 cards out of it. I do think that the Rey is strong. They are playing Steel, however. I think I'm going to do this under the assumption that this will be good and that we have a flyer here. So I think we're going to do quest. And then we're going to play the Mufasa out. And then pass. And then since they have this 2/5, like if they play any dwarf here and they're able to quest with this, then we can very easily just bash Simba into it and use the Rapunzel to heal. Or the dock, realistically, because we don't necessarily need the discount that turn. And then we can draw 2 cards off of this, which I think will be useful. And if not, we have the ability just to ink this and play out the Genie, and that'll probably be fine as well. Like, use the Genie to bounce the Bashful, and then it just sets them back a full turn. Again, sort of playing around Steel a little bit, because if they have Smash, it makes the the 3/3 body a little bit worse. Like, obviously the Ray is very good, but with the 3 toughness, it sometimes can be a liability against Steel. Steel frequently has had Smash lately. So they play Grumpy, which gives this 3 power, which is worse for us, obviously. Given that now if this quests, I guess we can play Genie and just smash 2 things into the Bashful to remove it off the table. That's probably fine, and then this lets us keep the... Interestingly, we can actually Bippity this turn and draw the 2 cards. If we don't want the Genie in play. The Genie is very good, but it's possible that just the Rapunzel with the 2 cards and then the additional tempo is better. So we have to quest with Doc. I guess we can't then. If we have to quest with Doc to play the Genie, then it limits our ability to Bippity. Because we have to sing it with Mufasa, and then we can't attack the Bashful. We can do it next turn. It's not a big deal. Let's do this, and then we'll hit here and here. And then just say go. I don't think we need to go that quickly. If they opt to like deal 2 damage to our board or whatever, then we still have the Genie, and then the Mufasa will flip into something else. We'll still have 2 damage on something, and the Rapunzel will be good anyway. If they leave the Doc in play, the Rapunzel and the Bippity will be good. Yeah, so they did grab your sword. That's fine. We'll see what the Mufasa does for us. Hades. That's nice. Hades into Mufasa. Combo. Are they going to kill the Doc here? It's fine if they do. They opted not to. I think we quest with the Genie for sure. I think I also quest with the Doc. Let's start with Rapunzel on the Genie here. So we're not taking the Genie out of play no matter what. Actually, we might have taken the Genie out of play to play the Mufasa. Like, we could have bippity-boppitied the Genie to put in the Mufasa instead. I don't think that's really necessary. I think we don't need this queen here. I think I can probably just quest here. It's in our bin, just Simba. Yeah, I guess I just quest here and play Pain and say go. Yeah, I think I was supposed to heal the Doc and then bounce the Genie for the Mufasa, and then we just have Genie in hand to bounce something again. Kind of didn't matter. They were a bit behind pretty much the whole game there. Yeah, the Ruby Amber build runs Lantern. I think most of the non-green ones run Lanterns, just because it gives them the ability to ramp into their Mufasa a turn earlier, or their other 5s. You're kind of skipping some of the 3-drop a little bit. Because there's better cards to be playing. And then your density of things that Mufasa can hit are a little bit on the higher end instead of the lower end. This deck is a bit of an exception in that it has a lot of the low drops that you can shift into other stuff. And then it still has the Bippity Boppity Boos to sort of do other weird tricks with that as well. And it leverages sort of the Pain Panic a little bit more. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a bad thing. And there's other versions of this flavor of the deck, too, that I think you can actually do a similar build, but instead of running like the Pain Panic, you run sort of the discard package. You run the Johns, the Buckies, and then just more of the, you know, things like Queen and whatever. So then you're just making them discard random cards, and then you have Lucifer as sort of a payoff, which can be interesting as well. It's kind of a weird hand against Steel. The Doc is very good. The Pain is okay. I don't think that we need the Tinkerbell. I'm curious about this Bippity if we get the queen shift, but we don't really have anything to shift into. I think I'm going to get rid of these and maybe we'll try it. Okay, so we do have the queen shift wombo combo if we want it. I don't necessarily think that we want to overinvest in it. I'd rather go for like the pain panic sort of line and then see where we're at after that, especially with the captain hook. I think we get rid of the new dog. If I run out the queen here, it's just going to sit there and do nothing. Like most of the game, I think. We could just shift this out, but that feels pretty bad too. I think I'm going to pass and just play the pain first and see where that leaves us. Because we could also play the dock instead of the panic as well. And then just cast the big queen. Or do this for 3 on one of the turns. And then use this to sing. I don't know. We'll see. Another pain, huh? I know that the Ray is not particularly exciting in this matchup. Having played against the Steel deck, they have a lot of smash generally, which makes this card a little worse. I think I'm off the queen shift thing here. Just the way that our hand shook out. I just don't think that we're going to ever have a spot to do it. I think we're just going to play pain here and pass. They could even shift the hook here, which would be a bit annoying. Which then would have made my desire to have the queen a little higher. Nothing too crazy, though. Suspect that they're going to quest here. It's a world where if they do, we panic and we just kill the captain hook as well. Because it prevents them from whole new worlding for a full extra turn. Which I really don't hate. I really don't hate that. I don't think we need a second pain. I do like playing panic here. And I kind of like doing this to prevent the hook shift. I'm just saying go. Panic is a pretty decent card overall compared with the other ones that buff power. The fact that it gives this enough to get the extra bonus, but also the panic here ends up being worth 2 lore characters, pretty good. So we'll see what they do. They run out a Tiana, so we can't cast any spells, but that doesn't really matter a ton. We didn't have that many spells to begin with. Like, obviously we have this one that we can't cast anymore, but I'm not sure how much that changes what we want to do. It's just a resist 2. I mean, we can play actions this turn, so we can still flicker the pain and get in for 3 if we wanted, for this turn specifically. I almost feel like this Ray is very good. And maybe just doing more flying things is just going to be what we need to do here just to race. Maybe I don't care about this dock then. Or this Stitch. Probably the dock, given that we have enough resources to begin with. Let's play Tinkerbell. We can just gain 3 here. Or we can just quest with both of these and gain 3. I don't know how many more turns we're going to be able to really reasonably do this anyway. I guess I'm just going to quest. and let them figure out what they want to do with our cards. Like, I'm pretty likely just playing Ray this turn. But I could just play Queen, and then that makes the pain better if they don't kill it. Though the way it looks, they're likely just gonna bash this twice, which is fine. How much is this? This is resist 2. Just kill this. And then play Queen instead of Ray, and then the Tinkerbell can just eat the Tiana. I don't hate that. It makes Tiana bash into this. Could also just do Tinkerbell here and then quest with this, because this is flying. I kind of like that better. Alright, let's do this. We'll do kill here. Quest with Panic, and then I'll play a Queen and say go. And then that means that the Tiana can't reasonably quest either, because we can just bash it with quest here and then bash here or whatever. They ripped a grab your sword. Well, that's awkward. That is big awkward. I guess I can't quest with this Queen. If I play another Queen, then either one can get it. I think I may as well just play the Ray instead of the other Queen. Do we need this other Queen at all? I don't think so. Let's do this. Just hope that they brick for one more turn. They drew and played a Cogsworth. Well, that's unfortunate. It's manageable, though. The Tiana can't really quest here. The Ray can quest easily enough. Ray can quest. We can Hades. Hades getting back Pain. And then Pain being played so that this Queen can do some bullshit next turn. And then I guess we say go. Because we can even choose to Bippity either the Hades or whatever. See what this card does. They drew a Smash. Their draws have been very good off the top, unfortunately. Though we do still have some pretty good lines to deal with what they're doing over there. Panic is decent, actually. Is it better to just buff the Pain, the Queen instead, and then run out another Queen? Probably. Because then we get to quest for 5 this turn. This is resist 3, but then if it's tapped, then we can deal with it. Yeah, so let's do this. Quest here. This thing, and then this thing. Quest with Pain. We could just put the Ray back into play instead of the Queen, but I think the Queen is better here. I think just playing the Queen is stronger in this spot. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Let's do this and say go. And then if they can't get the Pain off the table, the Pain is going to get in for another 5 here. Another Cogsworth, sure. Bunch of Cogsworth doesn't really, like, I just don't care about the Tiana anymore. It just doesn't really do much for them, I don't think. Probably just going to end up playing another flyer and then being safe here. They opted as quest, which I think is reasonable. We can just take out the Cogsworth here, if we were so inclined. Do we want to take out this Tiana? This is resist 4. We would have to queen this and then also paint it, or panic it rather, which is pretty rough. I think I'm better off just doing this. We shrink here, do this. We pain. We go to 18. We do 19. And then I think I just play a pain and say go. And then it doesn't matter what they do to these things. We can just get them with this. Yeah, nice. Pretty good. I mean, the deck feels pretty strong, even without making changes. RMB definitely made a pretty solid flavor of it. We were talking about it a little bit the other day in one of the chats too. Like, I like the amount of evasives that it has. I like the ability to have bursty lore with sort of pain in combination with queen and with panic. I think that's pretty strong. I honestly feel like the weakest part of the deck is the Stitch and the Rockstar part. It's not bad, necessarily. Like, there are obviously some spots, say, against Ruby Purple like we had earlier, where we were able to play the new dog, and they just don't have an answer to it outside of Maui. And then you just sort of, on their turns where they're going to be able to play Maui, you just don't quest with it and do other stuff. And then make the Maui line not really work super well. I just don't think this deck has enough to, like, 1 and 2 drops to really leverage the Rockstar super well. Which makes it a little worse in my mind. Though there are some lines, obviously, with Bippity Boppity Boo that you can sort of flicker the Rockstar, turn it into a Genie, or turn it into a Mufasa, and then scoop up a Stitch and a Rockstar back to your hand or whatever. Or you can shift it and then pull the dog out from under it and then just have it back into play. Those are options as well that let you replay this the turn after. It's interesting. I think as a Mufasa deck, I think it's probably has a lot of worse hits off the Mufasa than some of the other versions. I think maybe the Ruby version has better, like, things that this turns into a lot of times, whereas this can turn into a lot of 1-drops that aren't nearly as good as, say, the Rockstar or the Surfer Stitch or whatever. And obviously Queen on its own, not stellar, but, like, it can turn into Ray, which is very good, can turn to Genie, even Tinkerbell. These are all very strong threats, very strong evasive threats, which I think are very interesting too. There's not really too many other cards in these colors that I would be looking to try, I guess, outside of moving towards the discard package. If we take this and we just duplicate it just so that we can look at the deck list itself, looking at the cards by cost, if we go all the way down towards the bottom, you know, we have Facilier as a 7, which whenever it quests, something can't quest on their next turn, it's like okay. It is just a 4/4, so it's essentially a Genie most of the time. It does quest for a little bit more, but the cost is, like, sort of prohibitively high most of the time. There are some sort of mid cards, like you could cut the Rockstar New Dog package and then add in some of the cards. Pete could be kind of interesting in this space because it isn't very difficult to get it up to 7. It's not free to get it up to 7 because obviously you don't have very many spells. You would need to double panic, but it does work well with the Queen, so there's something here that you could potentially look towards, maybe if you had other ways of giving additional power. I do like the John Silver a lot as a similar effect to Genie on the Job is just another interaction with what their board is doing. Doesn't necessarily help you that much against Be Prepared, which is kind of where this deck is going to struggle a lot, I would think. If they go a little too big and then Be Prepared, and then they like have answers for your flyers. Jetsam is probably a bit of a beating against this deck a little bit, just because it is able to answer some of these flyers, and then the Genie on the Job is like your only real sticky threat then, outside of the Mufasa. There aren't many other bigger things to sort of go into that this deck really would need or want. So I think it's designed pretty well overall. So definitely give this one a check out, certainly. I could see going up on the Rapunzel a little bit, especially since we're running Pain. It is very good with a lot of like the 3/3s. You just hit Pain into that, and then you Rapunzel, which is very strong. I think if you would shave like the Rockstar New Dog package, it would make room for some additional ways of leveraging the Rapunzel. The deck would probably be a little bit slower, but it might be more resilient if you add things like the Eudora, if you add potentially something like maybe a John Silver, or even a Mother Gothel just stopping questing entirely if it comes off of a Mufasa is pretty interesting as well. Or even some of the like slightly larger bodyguards, though they don't do quite as much on their own. The Eudora is interesting because when you have more Rapunzels, it just gives you another thing that you can get into play that has a huge amount of toughness that a lot of decks can't deal with very comfortably, and that you can Rapunzel with pretty easily as well. And then because you have the queens and because you have the panics, you have ways of making this have a little bit more power to trade up into stuff while you're doing that same thing, which I think is pretty interesting. This is probably one of the better queen decks that I've seen. Yeah, Maximus can also be good with that too. Gives you another thing that could be a 5, you know, a couple of Eudoras, some Maximus maybe. Like the support ends up being pretty reasonable there. I could also see a world where you maybe want a few cheaper effects. Like if you're cutting the New Dog, you would probably want some of the other small things that are reasonable. It could be something as simple as adding like Grand Duke or whatever to just give your cards a little bit more power on their own. It could even be something as simple as just like, you know, adding a Lantern, or even adding some of like the Snow White kind of things. It's tricky. It's tricky. The list is very narrow, right? It doesn't have a lot of room for extra play because there's so many of the cards that are very good already. There's not a lot of room to mess around, but there's a little bit. There's a little bit of room there, as long as you don't go too crazy with shaving some of the low drops. I think that's one of the problems that the purple variant of this had, is it just didn't do a lot on some of the early turns, which is why I think that the Pain on 2 is very strong, because it gives you something to do through these couple of early turns before you get into some of the sort of bigger flyers. So they're now having to deal with your early nonsense. Like this is a 3-cost 2 lore, this is a 3-cost 2 lore, and they're both pretty strong there. And then this ends up being a 2-cost 3 lore character as well. You could potentially add something like Lilo. I think you'd have to be a little cautious of your uninkables then, since the Genies are uninkable, the Hades are uninkable, the Panics, as well as the Bippides. It could be tough to sort of add too many more uninkables for the deck, but you might be able to get away with a little bit of them, as long as you recognize that then you're probably going to be inking some of your better cards. But cutting a bunch of uninkables, or a bunch of inkables and adding uninkables, is usually pretty tricky, especially when we're already at 14, which is not a crazy amount, but when you're doing things like Queen into Pain into Panic, all of a sudden, like, a lot of your cards are not in your hand, so then some of your things like Mufasa, which are more important to get into play a lot of times, you just don't have them. Or you don't have the ink for them, at least. And without the Lanterns, you're relying a lot on Doc then to do some of that heavy lifting to bridge from 3 to 5, which can be tricky, you know, which the Bippity, I think, has a lot of value with the shift, which is why we're running like the new dogs to be able to try and use this to shift, possibly even singing with a panic or a dock once we've already got one of these other ones out, and then doing more in a single turn than what we would normally have access to. Something that like 0 to Hero or Just in Time or whatever, Lantern, would also be able to give you. But I think the deck is pretty good, and I think that that RMB did enough testing on it to make it a pretty good list. I have played some Fairy Tale Fables. Yeah, I did a casting for it a little bit as well, on when they first released it. So I think the game's pretty good. I've definitely been keeping an eye on it. I play it from time to time when I'm offline. I have not been streaming it as much though. Every now and again when I want to do a quick hatball game, I'll jump in and do that. But yeah, I have played it a bit. I did some casting on their sort of launch event. If they end up doing a lot more with it once the player base gets a little bit bigger or whatever, we might circle back around on it. But for right now, we've been focusing the stream on Lorcana a bit. So, but yeah, I really do think that this deck is quite good. If you didn't get a chance to check it out, I'll put the link below. I believe that I've got it here on stream as well. With the green Mufasa deck. I broke the link. Let me fix that real quick here. This is like this. And then that should fix that. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so there's the green Mufasa deck. I'm not necessarily going to link the yellow-purple deck. I think that was a cute experiment, but I don't necessarily think that deck works super well. I will probably be trying the Mufasa with blue, and probably the red version as well, just to get a feel for how much we like Mufasa at all here. I, so far, have enjoyed the card. I think it's a good answer to Be Prepared and Swords, blowing up your whole board with Tinkerbell. So I definitely think it's something that is worth trying to make work. And I think that if you enjoy just, you know, having cards that that put bodies on the board rather than just, you know, interacting with spells and items and things like that, I think Mufasa is kind of the way to go. And I think it probably will be going forward as well. So I think I'm going to be done for today at least. I do appreciate everybody for hanging out. Let me see who else is on. I don't know if anybody's even necessarily streaming this except for me. We can maybe send you over to Joker Sam and then see what he's working with. Looks like they are pretty new as far as streaming Lorcana, or streaming in general. I think we'll send you over there. And then, yeah, thanks for hanging out. If anybody obviously has any questions, I will be putting these up onto YouTube, of course. But you can always, you know, hit me up in the chat or whatever as well. And you know where to find me on Discord and such, too. If you have not given a chance to sub to YouTube, I would appreciate that quite a bit. Mostly because we're trying to get to 1,000, but it would help out the analytics and stuff for that, which, as obnoxious as it is just kind of how it works out. So, but thanks for watching. Let's set up a raid here. Raid, Joker Sam, Ash Little Cat, appreciate that as well. And I appreciate everybody for being here, and I will see everybody next time.